Who am I, Penny? Say it.
The body count racked up tonight and the Black Hood was finally revealed. Sort of. Let's break down Season 2, Episode 21 of Riverdale right here on What Happened. What's going on, Riverdale family? Lisa here. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel where I love talking about and rambling about nerdy TV shows and things that I like. Are you doing okay after tonight's episode? Are you still breathing? Because after tonight, there's some characters on the show that aren't. Yeah. In fact, tonight's episode was so explosive, I'm really not quite sure how I feel about it yet. I'm not sure if I actually liked it. You know, if you saw it, you know Jughead needs some love, so I got my Jughead beanie on, I got my crown shirt, and yeah. When it comes to the Black Hood, we finally got our answer. Well, sort of. So let's just dive right into that. As expected, which means actually totally boring and unsurprising to me and probably a lot of you, Hal is the Black Hood. Although, wait a second, yeah, he's not the only one. Someone else is still running around posing as the Black Hood and torturing Archie. Yeah, this whole stupid multiple hood thing is back and it's getting kind of ridiculous. But the majority of Black Hood murders that happened have been Hal. Now, it's only right to take a moment to remember all those we lost in this episode because it was a lot. So we gotta say RIP to Fangs, who we barely got to know and I was starting to like, Andre, Small Fry, Dr. Masters, and yes, possibly Jughead. I said it, possibly Jughead, because Jughead's life hangs in the balance at the end of tonight's episode, which I'm sure has a lot of you guys mad. But you know what? It'd be a pretty impactful and gutsy move if they did kill Jughead off. But you kind of know that they're not going to, right? Did I actually end up naming all the deaths? I think I got them all. At this point, who knows, because I was starting to lose track. What else happened in this episode? Cheryl continues to be a badass. Hiram's family's finally turning on him, and yeah, it's just basically an episode that many would describe as a mashup of The Shining, Gotham, and Arrow. So let's get to talking. So it is an all-out war in Riverdale after the shooting of Fangs at the end of last episode. Jughead and FP take Fangs to the hospital while the rest of the Serpents are pissed and start wreaking havoc on the town, pretty much putting it up in flames, as they search for Reggie, who they think shot Fangs. Archie gathers the rest of the Dark Circle to inform them that it wasn't Reggie that shot Fangs, and now they need to find Reggie because he's missing. Archie, of course, then calls Jughead to try to get him to get the Serpents under control. You can guess just how well that goes. It's actually Veronica who figures out who shot Fangs as she sees Mrs. Clump on the street, and Mrs. Clump confesses to shooting Fangs. Archie relays that information to Sweet Pea, but the Serpents, they don't really care. Basically, everything was still caused by a North Sider, and they want revenge. They're about to have a showdown when Principal Weatherby shows up at the school to stop the brawl. Now it's up to Jughead and Archie to do damage control with their two groups. As the guys meet up with Reggie at Pops, the Ghoulies make a grand entrance ready for blood. Archie manages to hold them off with a few Molotov cocktails, but it's the entrance of the River Daddies that ends up saving the day.
Get the hell out of here.
Well, hello, Riverdale Daddies. Yeah, I'd actually watch that spinoff in a heartbeat, and I'm pretty sure Kevin totally gets me here.
We're not letting this town go down without a fight.
Hot Riverdale dads to the rescue.
Do you think Kevin can somehow just send me that picture for my fridge? Anyway, back at the White Worm, Sweet Pea is so pissed and he's had enough that he calls Jughead out for being a bad leader and that Jughead is responsible ultimately for getting Fangs shot. The Serpents want justice, but Jughead asks them to hold off for another hour as they work things out. That's all messed up though when Jughead gets a call from none other than slimy Penny Peabody, who has taken Tony Topaz captive. Jughead agrees to meet with her, and what do you know, the Dirty Snake has of course joined forces with the Ghoulies, and they want the Serpents out of town so they can take over and continue selling their drugs. Obviously, Jughead and Tony are now outnumbered, but thankfully, Jughead brought some backup.
Get back, you hobgoblin.
I brought backup too. Like I said, I'm taking Tony, and we're leaving.
Yeah, more on Katniss Blossom a little later when I talk about the whole Black Hood situation. But Cheryl and her bow and arrow are enough to get Penny and the Ghoulies to back off, and the trio return, and you can bet that Sweet Pea and the Serpents want blood even more now. Even FP does. The only one who doesn't is Jughead. As FP goes to get backup, Jughead finally realizes, oh, hey, wait, all this crappy stuff that's happened in this one day can't just be coincidence. Huh, who could be making the calls on all of this? Jughead ends up making a call to Hiram Lodge, and yep, Hiram was the one working with Penny and the Ghoulies and all this other stuff, and he was about to meet with Penny just as Jughead called. So what deal does Jughead make with Hiram? Well, he sacrifices himself. Jughead calls Betty to tell her that he loves her and all this stuff that you would say before you basically are either going away for a long time or you know that you're going to die or possibly die. So of course Betty, there's red flags that go off and she's like, something's wrong, so she calls FP. Jughead then goes to meet with Penny and the Ghoulies all alone because Hiram basically wants Jughead out of the way, and Jughead thinks that this will make things sort of right, but of course it won't, because the Ghoulies and Penny still plan on taking over the south side even with Jughead out of the way. There's no peace offering here. The Ghoulies end up beating the crap out of Jughead, and Penny gets her pound of flesh by cutting off his tattoo.
Payback, payback is a bitch. Payback, payback is a bitch.
Everyone then ends up showing up as FP carries Jughead out of the woods, and well, his body is pretty limp. Yeah, you're still processing that, are you? Well, as you do that, let's move on to the Lodge family. Hermione's still pretty shaken up after the events of last episode, but Hiram tells her she'll be fine and they're ready to move forward with their announcement. Hermione's kinda not sure about this announcement. She says it's a gamble, but Hiram again reassures her that chaos is good for them and they have the pieces to restore order and safety, something Fred doesn't have. Hermione kinda though smells that something fishy is going on, so she's like, hey, where will you be going while I go to the register to make this announcement? And Hiram just says he'll be roaming around with another deputy and not doing anything wrong. We then get one of the most awkward kisses ever. Yeah, talk about total cringe fest. Hermione is completely on to you, you scumbag, and it's about damn time. So what is Hermione's announcement? Well, she is offering a $1 million reward for anyone that catches the Black Hood dead or alive, which will of course end up causing more chaos in Riverdale. Veronica ends up at the hospital and sees Hermione and Sheriff Minata talking and sees flyers for the bounty, and she's basically like, hey mom, what are you doing trying to turn this place into Gotham? Leave it up to Veronica to always be on top of it with her pop culture references. They return home and Veronica demands to know where the money for this reward is coming from, because she is like, this is not coming from that hard-earned money I got from the St. Clairs. So she is determined to find out where this secret stash of money that Hiram so-called has is. So she locks herself in Hiram's office. She doesn't find money, but she finds something else, the October surprise. Yeah, it turns out Hiram had an article written about Fred being the not-so-innocent family man, which would expose Fred and Hermione's affair and pretty much destroy Fred. Veronica is pissed, and Hermione says that she knew about it and continues to defend Hiram, but Veronica, she's finally had it. Hermione's just like, oh, I know I would bounce back from it, but Fred probably wouldn't. Veronica knows that her dad always puts someone else in the line of fire, kind of because he's a coward, right? And she basically looks at her mom and is just like, you're stupid. These two continue to fight, and then guess who shows up? Small Fry. You remember him? Well, probably not, because we haven't met him yet, but he is Papa Poutine's kid who's out for blood, and he doesn't want Hiram. He wants Hiram's loved ones. Well, sorry, Small Fry, he ends up getting shot by Hermione. Meanwhile, Hiram is driving around town looking at all the chaos he's created, and he's kind of happy, but then he gets pretty pissed when he finds out that the Riverdads messed up the whole situation with the Ghoulies at Pops. Hiram ends up returning home to find Andre dead, and he knows something bad has happened, and he rushes upstairs, but yeah, he gets no love from his family.
There's another dead body in the study.
It's your mess, Daddy. You clean it up.
Send down the raven.
I honestly just love how cold both Veronica and Hermione are to him. Like, why is it taking this long for Hermione to see what's been going on? And why have they been writing her character like this? Like, at one point, they had her believing she was the boss and she was all confident, and now she's just turned into this, like, monkey or puppet or whatever for Hiram, and it's really annoying. Anyway, Hiram informs them that they're off the hook for Small Fry's murder, but Veronica confronts him about the October surprise and says, you know what? She's never going to be part of his collateral damage. Hiram tells her to not lose sight of the bigger picture, but she pretty much says that he's already lost sight. Sorry, Hiram, looks like you're on your own now. No more putting your family in danger. And I guess the last thing to talk about is all this Black Hood drama. Last episode left us with the Black Hood showing up on Cheryl's doorstep, and that's where this episode kicks off. The Black Hood chases Cheryl through the house, but Cheryl manages to escape out of her bedroom window. When the Black Hood comes outside looking for her, well, surprise!
I suggest you run whilst you still can.
Yeah, we've seen Cheryl practicing her archery before, and it definitely comes in handy tonight because she's basically the CW superhero we all needed. Sorry, Arrow. Seriously though, she's like the dream mashup of Arrow, Speedy, Katniss, and like Little Red Riding Hood. Anyway, Cheryl shoots an arrow right into the Black Hood's right shoulder and he goes scampering off into the woods like a wounded animal. Before chasing after him, Cheryl is the good cousin and calls Betty to let her know what all just went down. Betty then heads over to the register where Alice is hard at work. After seeing Hermione's announcement about the bounty for the Black Hood, Betty knows she has to find Hal before anyone else does. Cheryl calls Betty again, letting her know that she lost the Black Hood, but he made his way towards the neighborhood and might be going to Betty's house, so she shouldn't go there alone. Well, you know Betty, she totally goes home by herself, and by the sink are a bunch of bloody rags. Hal, however, is nowhere to be found. She cleans up the mess, and then her phone rings, and it shows an unknown number, and she pauses for a second because she's like, is this going to be the Black Hood telling her what to do? Well, it wasn't the lollipop ringtone, and it ends up just being FP, who says that Hal just came into the emergency room. Betty ends up at the hospital, but guess what? Hal isn't in his bed. Instead, Hal killed Dr. Masters, who is now lying in his bed. The phone then rings, and the Black Hood tells Betty to come home and that Alice is already at home, and if Betty doesn't get there in 10 minutes or she calls the police, he's going to slit Alice's throat. Side note here, what is up with this town of Riverdale? This is like one of the most confusing places. Did you look at that hospital? It looks like something from the 60s or whatever. The nurses' outfits, the phone sitting next to the hospital bed, and everything. There's so many things that are so old, but yet these kids are running around with like iPhones and stuff, and I just don't get why Riverdale can't afford to upgrade their places. Now back to the actual episode. When Betty arrives home, Alice has no idea what's wrong, and she's just like, oh, sit down, get the popcorn, whatever, your dad wants to have a movie night. And Hal decides it's time to show some old home movies. The home movie Hal decides to show is of him as a little boy, and it just kind of confuses Alice. This video shows Hal's mom talking to young Hal, pretty much saying that Hal's dad killed the Conway family because they were sinners and sinners have to die. And now she needed young Hal to convince young Joseph Conway, the one survivor, aka Mr. Svensson we saw killed earlier this season, that someone else did the murder so he doesn't identify Hal's dad. After the movie is over, Hal tells Alice to get out her recorder so he can tell his story. And slowly you can see the blood from Hal's arrow wounds start to seep through his sweater, just in case there were any doubters out there who thought that he wasn't the guy, the Black Hood, who got shot by Cheryl. Hal then starts dropping bombs. Remember when we learned that the Coopers and the Blossoms were related and that the Blossom great-grandpappy murdered the Cooper one? Well, that's actually total BS. It was the other way around. Great-grandpappy Cooper did the murdering and changed his name to Cooper to create a new identity. Grandpa Cooper then killed the Conway family because they knew his secret and were blackmailing him. They were sinners to him. Now Hal has that same darkness, and he says Betty also has it. Hal then goes over to Betty and makes her say out loud to Alice what he has done. She then lists all his murders, but he says that whole debacle was not him, and he doesn't act like he actually knows who it is or has any idea what that was. As this confession party is happening across the street, the debate Black Hood makes his return. Fred and Archie get home, and Archie ends up getting in a fight with the Black Hood, who pulls a gun on Archie. Fred comes to the rescue from behind and hits the Black Hood over the head and goes over to Archie. Well, that blow unfortunately wasn't hard enough to knock good old Black Hood out, so he gets up and shoots Fred and runs. And it's like, what the hell, not again, Riverdale? Like, we already went through this. Well, thankfully this time Fred was prepared and had on a bulletproof vest that Keller gave them during their run-in with the Ghoulies earlier in this episode. Archie then goes running after the Black Hood, but he's nowhere in sight. When will the people on this show learn that, you know, once you hit the Black Hood, you just stop and rip the hood off his head to figure out who it is? You don't go run into somebody else. You only got a small window of time there, guys. This is like the 50th time I feel like the Black Hood's gotten away. Back across the street, Hal tells Betty that her speech at the Jubilee inspired him to keep the promise he made to his mom. Basically, she said the same words that his mom says in the video that triggered him. And he felt like he had to continue his family's work, and he wants it all recorded so that everyone will understand when he says they find us. Yeah, this sounds like Hal's basically planning a suicide mission and to kill Alice and Betty as well. Crazy, right? Well, thankfully Alice knows just what to do. She starts talking and basically cutting Hal down, telling him how he's failed as a serial killer, he never does anything for himself, and that he in fact is a sinner himself, because you know what, he may have shot Fred for being an adulterer, but Hal himself shacked up with Penelope Blossom, so he's just as bad as Fred. Alice continues to talk, acting as a distraction and giving little nods over to Betty, but really the only line that I heard in this whole conversation was this.
I stepped out on you with FP, who in every way that you are not is a real man.
Yeah, Bye-bye, Hal. Let FP and Alice live on. Anyway, Hal gets distracted and Betty grabs her weapon of choice, the shovel, and hits Hal over the head. But of course, Alice's not going to let Betty have all the fun, so she gets a whack in too. Hal is then led out of the house in handcuffs by Keller, which is kind of interesting because he only has his squad car still. He already turned in his badge, so why is he the one making the arrest? Anyway, Betty tells Archie and Fred that Hal was the Black Hood, but Archie's like, hold up a second. No, because the Black Hood just tried to shoot my dad an hour ago. And Betty's like, that's impossible because my dad was with us an hour ago. And well, I think you pretty much get where that's going, and that wraps up the events of this week's episode. If I missed any big things, I'm sorry, my brain's still trying to process and compute this stuff. So now, let's run back over things real quickly. Hal's the Black Hood, but there's still another copycat running around as the Black Hood, which means this season we've had, what, 3 Black Hoods now? Too much Riverdale. I'm personally over this whole Black Hood thing. This has been drawn out so much, and Hal wasn't even really that exciting of a reveal. So the other Black Hood better be one good reveal. It's probably not, though. It's probably some goon maybe hired by Hiram to scare the crap out of Fred and Archie, because if Hal did all the other attacks that he fessed up to, that just really only leaves the debate attack and Archie's house attack from this episode. So whoever this copycat is seems to only be targeting Fred and Archie. Is it someone that we know? Do we even care anymore? I know the other people that you guys thought it could be were Tallboy, but I'm pretty sure he's been gone and he ain't coming back. Hal having a twin brother, but I feel like Hal would already know that, and that's just weird. Chick, maybe, but why would Chick go after Archie? I don't know. Keller, some of you thought it was Keller. I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see. As far as Jughead, I know this is the unpopular opinion, but part of me does want him killed off because it could be a big move for the show and drive a ton of storylines. Now, do I think it will happen? Like I said earlier, no, it's not going to happen. You don't kill off Cole Sprouse from the show. Jughead is like such a huge part. But at some point, I feel like this show will kill off some big main character. But this just reminds me kind of last season when we saw Fred shot and had to wait until the new season to learn Fred's fate. There's still an episode thankfully left this season though, so I don't know if we're going to get Jughead's fate in the next episode. Hopefully we do, but it could also be part of this big cliffhanger. What else? Let's talk again about Hal as the Black Hood. In an interview with Lachlan Monroe, who plays Hal in Entertainment Weekly, he actually said he didn't get the news that he was the Black Hood until they read and filmed this very episode. And with that, he also says he never got to wear the Black Hood garb. It was always a stuntman who I guess they had to make look kind of like him. But this, to me, just makes me feel like this is lazy on this show's part. Like the writers had no idea what direction they wanted to go until the last minute. Another reason I don't like Hal as the Black Hood, like Alice said, he was a bad serial killer. If he was trying to get rid of the town's sinners, shouldn't he have gone for the worst sinners in town first? Like, oh hey, Penelope Blossom, oh hey, Hiram Lodge, instead of the ones that he went after. Like, they're crimes still, but pretty minor compared to what those two characters were doing. And instead he ended up shacking up with Penelope. All right, I'm done ranting though. I'm starting to lose my train of thought. This is just gonna keep going on. So let's go ahead and watch the promo for the next episode.
Our story's not over. It's just beginning.
I won't stop until all your dirty laundry is exposed.
He's one of the Black Hoods.
Do you want to see where he planned all of his murders?
I am not like you.
Aren't you? I'm gonna make my bones once and for all.
So at the time I'm filming this video, I haven't seen the extended promo that usually comes out as I'm editing the video, but I just played it for you. But from the shortened preview that I did watch, we have Archie, Betty, and Veronica standing over a grave. It seems like Betty is holding on to Jughead's beanie, but I feel like this is just to throw us off and make us think that Jughead is dead. Most likely Jughead is laid up in the hospital, and I feel like Betty is probably just carrying his little beanie around at all times, and that they're actually maybe at Fangs' grave. However, Cole Sprouse did take to Twitter to say grateful, thank you Riverdale, as that sounds like he's saying goodbye to the show, but is this also just keeping up with the charade to throw us off? Cheryl is rocking a sexy red serpent jacket, and all I want to know is, hello Hot Topic, are you going to start selling those please? Please do. Speaking of that jacket, in that frame, a fan pointed out that it looks definitely like Cole's hands are handing that jacket over to Cheryl. Guess we'll have to wait and see. We've got what looks like Archie and Betty confronting Hal in different stages. Archie's also hanging out with Sweet Pea. It seems like what happened to Jughead is going to unite Archie's side and Sweet Pea's side. And is Archie going to earn his bones by maybe killing Hiram? Please say yes. Okay, just kidding. Archie really shouldn't murder anyone, but Hiram does need to learn a lesson and go back to jail or something for good. All right, now it is time for you to weigh in the comments down below. What do you think of the reveal of Hal as the Black Hood? Were you disappointed because it was just so obvious all season? Who do you think is this copycat? Are all the characters that died in this episode actually dead? And what do you think is Jughead's fate? As always, let me know all your thoughts down in the comments. Hit me up on social media. Let me know. Then click right over here for 13 Reasons Why videos. If you're a fan of that show, I got a bunch of new videos about season 2 right over there. Be sure to subscribe, hit that thumbs up if you like what you see, and come back and talk with me. I think whenever the season finale airs, come back and talk to me about it because I'm gonna need some therapy probably. Okay, bye.